A clause is a group of words that has at least a subject and verb, or verb phrase. Simple sentences have just one clause, but compound sentences have two or more clauses. A main clause, or independent clause, is a clause that can be understood on its own. Therefore, a single main clause can also be a complete sentence. Like this example. Carlos has a new car. We've got the subject, Carlos, the verb, has, and here we also have a direct object, a new car. So this is one clause, which is also a complete sentence. Remember, a sentence must express a complete idea, and this does. It also starts with a capital letter and finishes with a period. A subordinate clause, or dependent clause, is a clause that doesn't make sense on its own. Therefore, it must be attached to a main or independent clause. Look at this example. Which is very fast. It doesn't make sense on its own. This is a subordinate clause. It needs a main clause to be understood. When we attach it to a main clause, it can be understood. Carlos has a new car, which is very fast. Now we have a sentence that is made up of two clauses. The first clause is a main clause, or independent clause. Carlos has a new car. It can be understood on its own, and it can be a complete sentence. But here we also have a second clause, which is attached to that first main clause, which is very fast. This is a subordinate clause, or dependent clause. A subordinate clause can come before, after, or in the middle of a main clause. Have a look at these examples. Since it was raining, we stayed inside. The main clause is we stayed inside because we have a subject, we, and the verb stayed. In this example, the subordinate clause comes first, since it was raining. It doesn't make sense on its own. It has to be attached to that main clause. In the second example, the subordinate clause comes in the middle of the main clause. Here, the main clause has been separated. The main clause is Sophia uses public transport. If this was on its own, it could be understood. But here we have the subordinate clause, now that she lives in the city, in the middle of the main clause. Sophia, now that she lives in the city, uses public transport. And in the third example, the subordinate clause comes after the main clause. This was the example we saw before. Carlos has a new car, which is very fast.